Okay.
Turn it on when it's ready to speak into it.
So, good morning, officers, members, and members of the public. We have the sort of pause screen on at the moment, despite what some people say about everybody working at home. They all seem to be working in County Hall today, and we actually have members that are present, but they're trying to find somewhere to park. So we'll just give them a few minutes to get here. And if they can't, then they'll have to tune in on the YouTube, and we will start. Thank you. No, it's amplified. You can move closer to the front if it would help. You are sitting at the back. Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Strategic and Technical Planning Committee on Thursday, the 16th of October, 2025. I'm Councillor Duncan Sarryhouse, Chair of this committee, and my Vice Chair is Councillor Dave Bolwell. The meeting is being live streamed and is available to view on the Council's website. By attending this meeting, you choose to be filmed. The Planning Committee is not a public meeting, but a meeting to which the public is invited, and all attendees must comply with the ruling of the Chair. Members of the public must not interrupt the meeting or cause undue disturbance, and to support this, please switch off your mobile phones or select silent mode for the duration of the meeting. Only those who have registered to speak in accordance with the speaking protocol will be invited to address the committee, and that will be for a maximum of 3 minutes. This is limited to the first 3 people objecting, the first 3 people supporting the application who have registered, along with the town or parish councils, and then the ward member. No additional material is to be circulated to members of the committee today. We have 3 applications to determine today. Usually we consider applications in the order set out on the agenda. However, the running order for this meeting has now changed due to officer availability. We will now be considering agenda item 6, planning application PVOC 2023-02551. First, the planning officers will be invited to present the report and recommendations. Next, I will invite members of the public who've registered to speak with Democratic Services officers before the deadline to address the committee in the following order: public against, public support, applicant or agent, town parish, and ward members. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Following on from the registered speakers, the planning officers will have the opportunity to address any salient points they wish to clarify, and committee members will be given the opportunity to ask questions of the planning officers before moving on to the debate. At the end of the debate, we will take a vote, and I will declare the decision of the committee. Can I remind members that when we go into councillor questions and debate, please state your name and ward for the benefit of the public watching and speak directly into the microphone so that we can hear all of you. If anyone is using Teams, please ensure you are on mute and your device volume is set to 0. Before we begin, just a few final points regarding housekeeping. We're not expecting a fire alarm during today's meeting. However, should the alarm sound, please leave the building calmly and without delay using the nearest fire exits, which are located through the main doors at the back of the chamber, exiting the main reception doors. The meeting will be formally adjourned at that point and will only resume once it's safe to do so. Finally, for transparency, as part of a trial, the Democratic Services officers will be testing an AI minute application for this meeting in conjunction with the clerk also taking a record as normal. So, do we have any apologies today?
Thank you. Yes, we've received an apology from Councillor Tony Coombs.
Thank you very much. So committee members present today are myself, Councillor Duncan Sarry-House, Councillor Dave Bolwell, Councillor Belinda Borden, Councillor Matt Bell, Councillor Richard Crabb, Councillor Spencer Flower, Councillor Craig Monks, Councillor Belinda Rideout, Councillor Pete Roper, Councillor David Taylor is missing in action, and Councillor David Took hopefully is navigating a parking space and will join us. Officers involved in today's meeting include Megan Rochester, Senior Democratic and Governance Officer, Joshua Kennedy, Democratic and Governance Officer, Phil Crowther, Senior Lawyer. Lara Altree will be joining us after 11 o'clock as Senior Lawyer and Regulatory. Matt Pochin-Hawkes, Lead Project Officer, Anne Collins, Area Manager, Southwestern Planning, Sarah Barber, Senior Landscape Architect, Alice Payne, for her first presentation. Welcome, Alice. Planning Officer, Minerals and Waste, Tom Uglow, Lead Project Officer, Minerals and Waste, and Felicity Hart, Minerals and Waste Planning Manager. Members, do we have any declarations of interest? Members have no declarations to make. Are we content with the minutes of the 23rd of September? Thank you. I shall sign those at the end of the meeting. Now, members of the public, I'm sure you may have been spoken to already, but you have the option to make your representations at this point in the meeting or after you've heard the officer recommendation. Does anybody wish to make a representation before they've heard the officer report? No, so we're all content to make our representations after the relative item. Thank you. So, Alice, this is going to be you. Application PVOC 2023-02551, Lyme Regis Golf Club, Timber Hill, Lyme Regis, Dorset, DT7 3HQ. When you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. My name is... my name is Alice Payne. I'm here to present Section 73 application PVOC 2023-02551 for Lyme Regis Golf Club driving range in Lyme Regis. So what we're looking at here is essentially two things. It is an extension of time application, which includes a change in landscaping to include new tree planting as part of the final restoration. The applicant is Hansford Construction Limited, and the formal detail of the application is that it is a reprofiling by importation of waste. It's a modification of conditions to extend the end date of these works, which were originally approved in 2014 and extended in 2017 due to delay. So where are we with this application? As you'll see on the screen, thank you. The site is just outside of Lyme Regis, which can be seen here. It lies along the A3052, which snakes up and joins the A35 at this roundabout here. In the centre of the image, you can see Lyme Regis Golf Club, and the site lies off to the east just here. The development, as it stands, is bringing inert waste in and raising levels. It ran out in 2023 and requests a 5-year extension. It's important to note that as a result of this application, there'll be no change in levels, only in time, and a change to the landscaping plan. This will include the planting of climate change resilient trees, including maple, alder, hawthorn, and hazel. The site itself is within the national landscape. In green, you can see there is a bridle way that runs near the site. This is the aforementioned A3052. The golf course is to the west in blue, and the pink hatched area designates the area for reprofiling. This image is the view from the east looking towards the western boundary of the site. You can see there's a distinct change in heights, which I've highlighted here, with the filled area on the right versus the unfilled area on the left. This application for an extension of time would be an opportunity to avoid this abrupt break in slope and to restore the site in accordance with its designation within the national landscape. This is an aerial view of the site. It has been filled, or is intended to be filled, in 3 distinct phases. Phase 1 has been filled, all importation has taken place, and it has been seeded. Phase 2 is this smaller area in the middle, which currently awaits seeding, and all import as part of this extension of time would be in Phase 3, which is as yet unfilled. This is a schematic to show the phasing in more detail. As I said, Phase 1 in the north is completed, Phase 2 awaits seeding, and Phase 3 is yet to be filled. You can see there's a lot of interest in the right-hand side of this image. I will go through that now. In the northern corner of the site, you see the access for all HGVs and plants, and on the eastern boundary is the access for golfers. There's a highlighted blue area for teeing off within the completed Phase 1 area. This would be placed on a raised level with a timber fence separating it from this access track. and there would also be signage to inform golfers of the use of the track, the details of which were submitted by the applicant. This access track is partially already standing and would be extended down to the working area of the site. It would include new safe working level platforms in green and new stockpiling areas and a new plant parking area. Just zooming in on that northern access, here's the view of it from the road. It's owned by an adjacent farm and it's shared with that same farm, which carries on down this lane here. The site is off to the left on this access point here, and it's also shared with a campsite off to the right there. The development is a waste importation development. It is classed as disposal, which is at the bottom of the waste hierarchy. I consider that the need now is to complete the development in the interests of the amenity, as it currently is half finished. Finally, you'll see here, this is the restoration and landscaping plan submitted by the applicant, including the planting area I mentioned before, down here in this orange area. This will actually extend to meet a wooded area which lies to the south of the development, and all planting as part of this scheme would be subject to the 5-year aftercare period applicable to the site. As for the implementation of this, I propose a condition including a planting schedule, Area A to be planted in the first available planting season after permission would be granted, and Area B to be done in the first season after Phase 3 would be completed, as Area B in blue represents Phase 3. I think a key point of this application was how can we make sure it is completed within the timeframe presented, as it's gone on longer than originally anticipated. I propose a condition to set a minimum import limit of 3,500 tonnes in any 3-month period to ensure the restoration is done within timescales set out. This would require the importation log to be submitted at the end of every month and amounts to approximately 2 to 3 deliveries per day, depending on the size of the HGV. The current limit is 30 vehicles per day. Failure to meet this requirement would trigger a 6-week period for the applicant to submit a new restoration scheme to be approved by the Waste Authority, and this would be required to be implemented within 6 months of its approval. I've included this as the need to prioritise the completion of the development and guarantee its restoration within the timeframe applied for. So to summarise, the site is within the national landscape. The application is primarily an extension of time until the end of 2028, but also includes changes to landscaping. There is a conflict with the waste hierarchy, but I consider this to be outweighed by the material considerations presented. Therefore, I recommend to grant planning permission subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alice. We now hear from the agent, James Hansford. So, James, you'll have 3 minutes, and my vice chair will give you a 30 seconds at 2.5 minutes, just so that you know the sword of Damocles is falling. Time starts when you start.
Good morning, members of the committee. I'm here today to speak in support of the extension of time for our inert soil developments at Lime Ridge Golf Course. This application isn't about changing the nature of the development, it's simply about allowing us the time needed to complete the work responsibly and in full compliance with the existing approval and EA permit requirements. As you know, the past few years have presented challenges that no one could have predicted. The COVID-19 pandemic disrupted operations across every sector, causing unavoidable slowdowns in material movements. Since then, the wider economy has brought further complications. We have seen a significant slowdown in construction output locally, all of which has affected our ability to progress at the original pace. Throughout these delays, we've continued to manage the site safely and responsibly. Environmental controls, monitoring, and compliance have remained our top priorities. The The project continues to provide a vital service for the sustainable placement of inert soils, helping to support local construction projects, providing a licence option which reduces the disposal of waste at illegal tip sites, and lowering CO2 emissions from being emitted whilst tipping at sites further away. At present, this site continues to provide employment for local people as well as tax revenue for the government. The much needed improvement to the driving range facility will be welcomed by the golf club, future-proofing the club's facilities, securing jobs and ensuring the important local sporting amenity can thrive for years to come. As a company, we're currently pricing a number of projects which would enable us to fill the site to its capacity long before the extension deadline. We have no benefit to keeping this site open longer than it has to be. Refusing the extension would not achieve any environmental or planning benefits. It would only undermine years of careful progress and investment in proper land management. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, James. Alice, are there any points there that you wish to address, or are you content?
I'm content, thank you.
Members, are there any technical questions that you wish to ask of the officer? Okay, Councillor Belinda Borden, Lyme and Charmouth.
Thank you, Belinda Borden, Lyme Regis and Charmouth. Would you mind going back to the slide about the minimum volumes and delivery? And my question is really, how is that delivery scheduled to be monitored?
Thank you, Councillor. This condition will require the applicant to send in their importation log at the end of every month for the planning authority to look over. So that would likely be myself or possibly the monitoring officer.
Sorry, thanks. Sorry, are they, where is that sent into the planning team, or it's not the town council, or no? Okay, thanks. That's fine.
Any further questions? No? Yeah, Belinda.
Thank you, Chairman. Belinda Rideout, Gillingham Ward. On a similar vein, Alice, the inert material that's imported, who controls exactly what that material is? Is there someone monitoring, because it's coming from building sites, I assume? Could you just tell me who monitors it?
Yes, so the material that's imported is inert waste material. As you say, I believe it comes from from construction, demolition, waste. Yeah, that is governed by their environmental permit that they have. So this waste is not monitored. Well, their permit is given to them by the Environment Agency for the type of waste that they can import here.
May I ask another question? Alice, should this application be approved today, the five-year planting, could that be extended maybe to 10 years, given the sensitive area of the site for maintenance? Is that a possibility?
Well, in terms of the planting, it would be required to take place by the end date, and it is normal that planting schemes are required to be monitored and made sure that they thrive, and if they die or are removed within a 5-year period, then they need to be replaced. But other than that, this application for the end date includes those conditions. So there's no need for any further extension.
Councillor Richard Crabb.
Thank you, Councillor Richard Crabb from Sherborne West Ward. I wonder if there's ever been an independent assessment, I mean independent, in terms of how long the whole project would take to complete. Thank you.
Thank you. The original timeframe permitted for this site was approximately 5 years. That was to allow it to be completed in its entirety, but there's been delays. So I would say that as the site stands, it is, as you can see from my images, around half completed. The volume actually left to be imported is less than has already been imported, and the applicant advises that it's approximately 20,000 metres cubed or 30 to 40,000 tonnes of waste yet to be imported. And as you heard, I believe he's confident that he can do it over that time frame.
Thank you.
Welcome. Are there any other questions? Okay, is there any? Councillor Baldwin.
Thank you. If this extension was refused, would the re-landscaping have to take effect?
Thank you. As it stands, the site is half complete with that ledge halfway through. If it were to be refused, then the material on site would need to be smoothed out and graded, which would potentially most likely be done via an enforcement notice, and it would be likely to be a much longer and difficult process.
You can content with that answer?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody wish to move? Councillor Flower.
Morning, Chairman. Councillor Flower, Verwood Ward. I'm happy to move the recommendation as set out in the report.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Rideout.
Thank you, Chairman. Belinda Rideout, Gillingham Ward. I would be happy to second that approval, because I think between a rock and a hard place here, it's a very sensitive area, and that really needs to be sorted out. And I think there's only 3 years, isn't there, to do it to 2028. So with robust conditions, it should be okay.
Thank you very much, Councillor. So we have a proposal which proposes the officer's recommendation, and that's now being formally seconded. So we'll test that at vote with a simple show of hands in the usual way. So those in favour of the proposal, please show. And that is a unanimous decision to grant. Sorry, please speak.
I was going to say something, but you moved straight to the vote. But okay. I don't know what's happening here. Yeah, sorry, it was just to say it's one of the, as my colleague has just said, it's almost between a rock and a hard place. Obviously, the applicant hasn't been able to fill the site as originally intended, but it is somewhere that I do get a lot of complaints about. So I would be very keen on both in terms of the condition of the road and of the visual impact. I'm assuming that you're satisfied with the conditions and the monitoring schedule. On that basis, then I can't oppose it. It's important for our local business and for our local amenity.
So, Officer, can you just confirm, as I think the report says, you are content with the transport plan for that site?
Yes, I believe it's adequate.
So I Do I understand that we have a unanimous vote to approve now? Thank you very much. So that's PVOC 2023-02551, Lyme Regis Golf Club, Timber Hill, Lyme Regis, Dorset, DT7 3HQ is granted. Thank you very much. There we go. So we now move to P full 2025-00485, land at Cruxton Farm, Cruxton Lane, Cruxton. Presenting officer is Matthew Pochin-Hawkes. Welcome, Matthew, and your presentation will start when you start.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, members of the public. Okay, this application is submitted by Enviromina. It's an application for a solar farm and associated infrastructure landscaping at Cruxton Farm. Cruxton, just trying to get my pointer on here. There we go. And the development will be time limited for a period of 40 years, after which time the development will be decommissioned and the infrastructure development removed. The application follows the refusal of a planning application for a similar scheme in a few years ago, which was refused in November 2022. That then went to inquiry at appeal. At the inquiry, the Secretary of State dismissed the appeal, but the examining inspector did recommend approval, so that was dismissed. And just before I get into the presentation proper, I'll just mention the update sheet, which members will have got yesterday. There's a few things on there, some additional information. We had a briefing note circulated directly to members of the public, members of the committee, about the scheme benefits and how the applicant considers that it demonstrates exceptional circumstances. There's a letter from the applicant's head of grid about making the case that there aren't opportunities for this site outside of the national landscape, and a few clarification emails from the applicant as well. There are also some minor report updates and clarifications in that update sheet as well, just correcting some errors and expanding on some points. And overall, that further information and updates don't change the conclusions or recommendations of the report. This is a site. So this is a broad location of it. We're west of Dorchester, south of Maiden Newton, and just south of Cruxton here. You've got the A37 here in green, and the A35 is west out of Dorchester. And that's the Dorchester Road here. This is the application site boundary. The middle two fields here, that is where the solar farm is proposed. The site also includes two accesses. The southwest access to Greenford Lane, that would be used for construction access. The northern access here would be used when the solar farm is up and running for operational and maintenance purposes. What I've circled in green as well here is the point of connection that has been offered to the applicant by the district network operator, and as clarified in the update sheet, that POC is not proposed by the applicant. It's not in the site boundary. It's been offered to them by the DNO, and it's on part of the 33 kilovolt distribution network. And it is very close to the site. It's around 60 metres from the site boundary there. This is an aerial view of the site. You can see the site is in open countryside, and these two fields here are currently in arable agricultural use. The maize has recently been cleared, and you can see the hedgerows around the outside of the site and through the centre there. And what I'll do is I'll refer to these fields as a northern field and the southern field as I go through the presentation. Topography is important for the site. The site is on the south side of the Froome Valley. There's a moderately steep route that comes up to the site here. Heights generally move up as you walk to the southern side of the southern end of the site here, and they increase from around 140 meters AOD here to about 180 meters AOD in the southern part, highest bit of the site here. Designations and constraints. The site lies entirely within the Dorset National Landscape, AONB. Just to show some wider context, this is the Dorset National Landscape here. You've got Cranbourne Chase as well on the plan. It covers a large area. Zooming in, this is where the broad location of the site is, and it's about 6 kilometres from the closest part of non-national landscape, just east of Stratton here. The site is outside of the defined development boundary. There are public rights of way in the site and in the surrounding area. Those within the site follow the western boundary. There's one right of way along the western boundary, and then there's one along the southern boundary. And together they form part of a long distance walking route known as the Macmillan Way, which goes from Boston to Abbotsbury. Within the surrounding area, you can see in green the various rights of way in the surrounding area, and what's shown in dark brown here are the areas of open access land, whereas there is a right to walk across that land, and clearly those areas offer views towards the site. And the Hogcliffe National Nature Reserve here has recently been expanded by Natural England. Both are on the other side of the valley there. Okay, so scheduled ancient monuments, they're covered in the report along with the list of buildings. There are various scheduled ancient monuments in the surrounding landscape, just highlighted in red. I won't go through all of those, but they form, locally, a number of barrows around the site here. Listed buildings, there are a number of listed buildings. Just to note these, they're not very clear on the plan, but they are shown in yellow, and where the laser's hovering now, you've got 4 listed buildings down in Crookston there in the centre of the settlement. And there are also areas of existing and potential ecological network as well within the site, and they're just the areas just around the 2 copses of woodland in the northeast of Field 1 and the southwest of Field 2, and the site falls entirely within Flood Zone 1. Site photos. I'm just going to show you some site photos here, generally walking up to the site and then through the northern field, southern field, and then looking at views from the permissive route just to take you on that journey. So site photos here, photo 1 is on that route up to the site, which is proposed for the operational and maintenance access. As you walk up there, you've got hedgerow here, and if you look to the left through the hedgerow, you can see the point of connection, which is on the 33 kilovolt line. This track continues upwards until you get to the northwest corner of the northern field. Here you can see the route of the right of way that continues up the site, and you've got a hedgerow on the right hand side, and you've got hedgerows around this entire field as well, with some sporadic trees. And as you walk up this right of way here, you can look left, east, and there you have far-reaching views, and on a clear day you can see towards the Purbeck Hills, your panoramic views there. As you walk further along that right of way, you can turn back. Maiden Newton falls out of view, and it's hidden behind the landscape here, and you've got the hedge as well on the left-hand side. And again, turning kind of northeast, you've got far-reaching kind of panoramic views. The kind of sense of like tranquility and remoteness generally increases as you walk up the site, as various bits of built development fall out of view. When you're at the kind of southwest corner of the northern field, you can look back, and there's a gap in the hedgerow here where you can look west, where the permissive route would go. The permissive route would go down, this is proposed by the applicant, down the left-hand side here of the hedgerow. So you'd obscure the solar farm, which is on this side. Photo 4, this is where you enter the southern field, so you're continuing that walk up the site. And again, you can see the field is bound by hedgerows on the southern side, which is between the two fields. On the eastern side, and you've got sporadic trees there as well. And on the west side here, as you continue your walk up the route, and at the top there, you can also see the hedges as well. And just to acknowledge, as stated in the report, that the views do change over the course of a year, as is typical of most agricultural fields. It's recently had maize in it, and you couldn't really see a thing walking up there. But yeah, that's just a note on those panoramic views. But on a good day, without high maize, you do get far-reaching views. These are just still in the southern field as you're walking up. Just to note that you do get, panoramic views from kind of midway up here looking back. But as you go further up, the landform rises of the southern field rises up in the centre. So it actually obscures far-reaching views as you go further up. As you reach the top of the field, this is around the highest part of the site, you are greeted with far-reaching views with limited built development in sight, and these photos are from the highest part of the site. Again, you can see the hedgerows down either side. These are some photos to the west of the site, so outside of the boundary bit where the permissive route is proposed, and they look across from that permissive route. And generally, as set out in the report, the views are less far-reaching. You can see adjacent fields. You can also see Maiden Newton as you walk down that route, down that proposed route towards the south. You can see Maiden Newton come into view there. And this photo just shows the kind of the view, one of the typical views, kind of walking up. This final photo here, I've just put this in because you'll see that there's the picnic area proposed by the applicant and the rest space in the northern field, and this is kind of taken midway into that picnic space. The fencing and the tree belt that's proposed for mitigation would come out broadly in line with this existing copse of woodland here. So this is the area. I think it's about 70 to 80 metres in width here. Now, the proposed development, this is the proposed plan. As you can see, the solar farm is confined to the two fields here. I'll just zoom in a bit. So the panels would extend across the majority of the southern field and around 3/4 of the northern field. They would be enclosed by a perimeter fence, and within that fence enclosure, there would be 4 transformers here, 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 and here. And there would also be a customer substation building, which is just here in purple. Outside of the perimeter fence would be the district network operator, the DNO substation, close to the customer substation. And along that fence line would be CCTV cameras, of which there are 13 proposed. So I'm just going to show some of those elements in detail. This is a section of the panels. They'd be orientated due south, angled at 20 degrees. Their lower edge would be around 60 centimetres off the ground. Their higher edge would be 2.26 metres off the ground. And the length of the panels would be around 4.8 metres there. You've got the exact figures on the plan. Each row would be spaced a minimum of 3.2 metres apart to prevent overshadowing by the panels, and they would be mounted on a framing structure with piles into the ground. These are the transformers, of which there are 4 in the centre of the site. They include feeder pillars, cabinets, and they sit on a 5.5 metre by 5.5 metre square concrete base, and they would be around 2.5 metres in height, and part of it would be enclosed by a mesh security fence. This is the customer substation, which is the one proposed within the fence enclosure, and this being enclosed with a fence, and it's a rectangular building, dimensions of around 6.6 metres by 2.6 metres and a height of 3 metres. This is a DNO substation outside the fence, again a rectangular building, slightly longer, 9 metres in length by 2.8 metres depth and 3.39 metres in height. This is the fence. The deer fence would be 2 metres in height. It would surround everything apart from the DNO substation. And on that fence, there would be CCTV cameras at the point shown on the overview plan, and they'd be on 3-metre poles. So the application is supported by a landscape drawings and a detailed landscape and ecology management plan. The landscape proposals include the creation of a picnic area here. This is proposed to include information boards on renewable energy and an information board on the permissive route. That would effectively be open space that walkers, anyone in the vicinity, could use. Within that are proposed scattered trees just next to the northern boundary of that picnic area, and on the south side of it is a tree belt, which is proposed on the northern side of the solar farm. A tree belt is also proposed on the eastern side of the solar farm here. There are new and improved hedgerows across the site, some gapping up of a hedgerow here in the middle of the two fields. Some minor hedgerow would need to be removed here to facilitate the development, but it is very minor. And then you've got new hedgerows proposed along the western side of both fields, where you've got the perimeter fence, and you've got a hedgerow here as well. Outside of the hedgerow, you've also got areas of grassland which have been proposed, and within the site, the land is proposed to be grazed by intermittent sheep grazing. I'm just going to zoom in on each of these elements because I know it's difficult to see them on that plan. But this is the picnic space. Again, just pointing out the scattered trees, the tree belt here, and the hedgerow here. This is the kind of intersection of the two fields. You've got the customer substation in purple, the district network operator substation. You've got the two routes here. You've got the existing Macmillan Way that would be retained in the same place, but the environment around it would change with this kind of wide route here, which is a minimum of 10 metres, but it does open out to larger than that. And what you see in yellow, I think that's yellow, is the permissive route here. And just jumping back, you can see where you come up to the site here, and then members of the public would have a choice whether they continue along the proposed or the existing right-of-way, the Macmillan Way, or they could go right here along the proposed permissive route, which would follow the other side of the existing hedgerow. And then they come together. They don't come quite together here, but you can see the permissive route then follows the other side of the hedgerow along the southern field, and the Macmillan Way stays as current. In the southern part of the site here, you've got an area of undisturbed grassland. You've got the new hedgerow along the south side of the solar farm. You've got scattered trees again. The permissive route here it comes through this copse of woodland here where it ends, and then there would just be the existing Macmillan Way that carries on east, and there's another right of way as well which goes southwest from there as well. And in this location, there'd also be a proposed information board on the permissive route. So, design evolution, I've set this out in the committee report, but there have been a series of design changes from the appeal scheme, which was dismissed, and the council has given pre-application advice through one round of pre-app last December before the application was submitted as well. And I'm just going to note these design changes and point them out as I go. They include the removal of solar panels from the northern part of the site here. So you see the previous appeal scheme included over most of the northern field, and that's now been set back here. That would create a kind of the picnic area here, and where the tree belt is proposed of about kind of 70 to 80 metres in width. There would be wildflower planting in that area where the solar panels are proposed, are no longer proposed, and there would be the rest area. There we go. The DNO, District Network Operator Substation, was previously proposed in that northern part of the site, as was the customer substation. They're now relocated to the kind of the middle of the two fields here. There's new hedgerow planting to the north of the solar panels, and the additional tree and scrub planting along the northern boundary of the site between the two fields, so along here. The solar panels will be located further from the Macmillan Way, so that is enlarged in width to a 10-metre minimum along here. And there's a consequential reduction in the number of solar panels of the solar generation capacity down from 11.8 megawatts with the appeal scheme to now the 10 megawatts proposed. And the current proposals also carry forward a number of elements of the previous scheme, including the permissive route, the hedgerow reinforcement, and the proposed management of other boundary vegetation, and also the sheep grazing of the site beneath the solar panels as well. As set out in the committee report, the applicant has submitted a socio-economic benefit statement, and the committee report recognises the benefits of the proposals. Members will have also seen the briefing note that the applicant's provided, and I've tried to summarise the benefits of the scheme on these couple of slides. So in terms of renewable energy, it's a 10 megawatt generation capacity for the solar farm. The applicant estimates it would generate enough electricity to supply the average electricity needs of around 5,142 households. To put that in perspective, that is around 3% of households in Dorset, according to the 2021 census. And at the time of the 2021 census, Blandford Forum had around 4,800 households, so it's slightly larger than Blandford Forum. I know those numbers can be a bit difficult to get your head around, but that puts it in perspective a bit. And it would help to support local, national, international targets, and would make a valuable contribution towards reducing carbon emissions, helping tackle the climate emergency, and supporting energy security. This would also respond to the Council's declared climate, nature and ecological emergencies, as we see on the ecological benefits, and the strategic priority of the Council as well to respond to the climate and nature crisis. That's a benefit that's afforded significant weight, as set out in the report. Ecology. Whilst the B&G is slightly lower than the appeal scheme, it does massively exceed the 10% B&G requirement. You've got a 41% gain in habitat areas and 21% gain in linear habitats. You've got an agricultural field here which has a relatively low base, and there is a very significant amount of new hedgerows and planting going in, which all has an ecological benefit. And those new areas would support nationally protected species, which is also one of the special qualities of the national landscape. Economic benefits. There would be economic benefits arising from this. Most of the jobs would be created during the construction stage, and just under 7 full-time equivalent jobs would be created during the 40-year lifetime of the development. There would also be injection of wages to the local economy, and the gross value added is estimated to be 9.7 million. There are also benefits in terms of the permissive route proposed on the west side, which is currently inaccessible. It's on private land, and you've got the rest area and the picnic area as well. I should say, these benefits aren't, if there's a resolution to grant, they would need to be secured to secure those benefits. Without that, they wouldn't be captured. And the soil benefits here, it's accepted that the sheep grazing on the land over part of the year would give the land a rest from intensive agriculture and fertilizers, which would improve the soil quality. There's also a benefit of farm diversification as well, which would provide a reliable income stream to the farmer. There's the benefits of business rates, and the community benefit fund aren't considered to be material in this instance. So the key planning considerations, I'll go through this and I will show the visuals on the landscape and visual impact assessment side as well. I'll come on to that, but just working through these key considerations as set out in the report. The principle of development outside the defined development boundary, renewable energy is acceptable, subject to environmental considerations under SUS 2. The key policy here on principle is policy COM 11. This is policy COM 11, and what it says is that it supports renewables wherever possible, providing the benefits of the development, such as a contribution towards renewable energy targets, significantly outweigh any harm. In addition, it sets out 3 tests as well in respect of local landscape, townscape areas and historic interest, minimising harm to residential amenity. In this case, the kind of key considerations, the considerations in the report have been noise and glint and glare. And then finally, you've got the adverse impacts upon designated wildlife sites, nature conservation interests and biodiversity, whether they're satisfactorily mitigated. The applicant's planning statement makes the case that this policy is not positively worded. It doesn't set a positive strategy. And the inspector of the inquiry also noted that it potentially sets a higher bar than the NPPF, so may be considered inconsistent with it. And that's where it says the benefits needing to significantly outweigh any harm. And I've acknowledged that within my committee report, and I've considered this on a kind of flat balance there of whether the benefits do outweigh rather than significantly outweigh. And for the reason set out in the report, and as I'll come on to on landscape and visual, it's concluded that the development isn't in line with this policy, and the benefits do not outweigh the harm. I'll come back to that. On agricultural land, matters are considered to be acceptable. Whilst just less than half of the site is best and most versatile agricultural land, grade 3A or above, the applicant has demonstrated through an alternative sites assessment that there are constraints locally which make this acceptable in agricultural land terms. Grazing would be possible under the solar panels, although there would be a kind of loss of agricultural productivity over the lifetime of the scheme because you wouldn't be able to use it for intensive from the various rights of way and open access land which exist within there. This plan shows the landscape character type, character area and type. The site forms part of the Upper Froome Valley landscape character area and Chalk Valley and Downland landscape character type. The key characteristics of the area include open views from expansive elevated areas and large arable fields subdivided by low, thin and straight hedges. This colourful plan shows the viewpoints which have been assessed by the applicant in the environmental statement and LVIA. They are the blue dots which you can make out faintly there. And what we have in yellow is the area of theoretical visibility where through desk space assessment, it's estimated you can see the site from. And generally that covers a kind of large viewing arc on the northern side of the valley here. So yeah, in total there are 29 viewpoints. 4 of these, as set out in the applicant's environmental statement, would experience significant effects at construction and at year 1. These are viewpoints 10, 11, 25 and 26, which are all on the site here, and I'll come on to show those. All but one of those would reduce to moderate and then further to negligible over the course of development as set out in the landscape and visual impact assessment, although significant effects would remain from viewpoint 11. That's the only viewpoint where you've got significant effects over the lifetime of the development, as estimated by the applicant. There's disagreement there from the landscape officer and the National Landscape team. So I'm just going to get on and show these views, and I'll show the ones on the site, and then the longer range ones from viewpoint 4, Lancan Bottom, 5, Hog Cliff, and also Blastmore Farm view 17 as well. And the applicants looked at views at existing views, year 1. Some of them have had year 5 views as well, and then you've got year 15 views. This viewpoint is from viewpoint 10, which is on the south, the northwest corner of the northern field. So right as you come into the site, as you come up the hill, looking west, and that's the existing view. At year 1, this would be where the picnic area is proposed. You'd see the back of the panels visible here. The new tree belt would be immature. So, and the tree belt would be proposed here and also on this side of the field. That hasn't had time to establish yet. The applicant estimates it would be a significant impact at year 1. Year 5, there's been some maturation of that landscaping. You can see the tree belt coming into play here, and also along the southern, along that eastern side as well. The applicant at this stage, year 5, estimates the effects would reduce to moderate. And then at year 15, where you've got the landscaping has matured, you've got the tree belt there along the side of the solar panels, and also if I just jump between them, you've got the tree belt on that side as well, which is established. This plan doesn't actually show the scattered trees along here, but you can note from here that the panoramic views that you currently experience would be obscured by the mitigation, and the applicant estimates that the impact here in visual terms would be negligible. Walking up the site further, still on the, well actually no, it's the same location, but just turns further around, so you're facing kind of directly south towards the solar farm. That's the current view as you look up the field. Hedgerow on the right. This is the year 1 visualization with the solar farm clearly visible and the landscaping be immature. Again, the applicant assesses this as a significant effect. At year 5, the landscape matures, the tree belt and the hedgerow here. The applicant assesses the impacts as reducing to moderate. And then at year 5, you've got the sorry, that's not year 5, that's year 15. Yeah, year 15, it's matured, the tree belt has matured, the hedgerow is maintained at 2.5 metres, which I should have mentioned a bit earlier on, but that is maintained there at a set height, and the applicant estimates there that the effect would reduce to negligible. Walking further up the field, you are still within the first field there, but you're turning to look north. Look back on yourself as you walk up the hill towards the other side of the valley there, towards Hog Cliff, just in here. This is year 1, where the applicant assesses the impacts as being significant. As you can see, you've got the impact on those panoramic views there. Year 5, you've got the hedgerow maturing, again maintained at 2.5 metres. Applicant estimates that will assesses that would reduce to moderate visual impact, and at 15 they assess it would reduce to negligible. Just jumping between there, you can see the tree belt on the northern side just coming into play as well. Walking further up the site, this is viewpoint 26B, and it's in the same location but looking east towards that panoramic view, where you do get those really long distance views on a clear day and when the field's on full of tall crops. In year 1, landscaping hasn't matured. Applicant assesses it as being a significant effect. Year 5, landscape matures slightly. applicant assesses the effect as reducing to moderate, and then reduces to negligible at year 15. Although there's little change in those visualizations. This is viewpoint 25. This is in the southern field, in the corner of the site, as you're looking north towards the other side of the valley, and you do get those, those far-reaching panoramic views from here. In year 1, this is the view, immature landscaping. Applicant assesses it as a significant effect. At year 5, they assess it as reducing to moderate, not significant. And at year 15, assess it as reducing to negligible. This is the very south west corner of the site, where you've got those longer range views and that sense of tranquility as well. This is the only viewpoint where the applicant's landscape and visual impact assessment concludes that there would be a significant impact for the lifetime of the development. So that's at the points they've assessed: construction, year 1, year 15, and during demolition, decommissioning. So this is the year 1 view, immature landscaping. Year 5, you've got the tree belt here on the southern boundary, which comes into play, and the hedgerow here is well maintained at 2.5 metres. You've got year 15 view there, where you've got the trees in that hedgerow tree belt maturing. And then, that's it for the views within the site. So now I'm just going to take us on the other side of the valley to look at some of those viewpoints. As out in the report, the National Nature Reserve has been expanded, so there are a number of viewpoints from the other side, but these are some of the ones that the applicant has assessed in their LVIA. This is viewpoint 4, the existing view from Lancan Bottom. The site's around here. At year 1, the solar farm is visible on the skyline, on the horizon, and it introduces new skyline elements. The LVIA assesses that impact as not being significant, but it does assess it as being one step down from there, a moderate effect, and that moderate effect is assessed throughout the lifetime of the development. Because as you can see here, looking at the view from viewpoint from the 15-year period, the landscaping has kind of limited effect because the site presents itself to the viewer, so you do see the development throughout that lifetime. This is viewpoint 5 from Hogcliffe National Nature Reserve, and it's from the top here by one of the accesses to the nature reserve. Due to the topography, you can see both fields here. And again, the applicant assesses the impact as being moderate, but not significant throughout the lifetime of the development, and that's for similar reasons that the landscaping makes little difference from this perspective, given the kind of topography of the land. Finally, viewpoint 17. This is from Blassmore Hill, looking directly towards the site. Here, again, you've got both fields being visible. Yeah, there you go. And yeah, I say both fields being visible. You get you get part of that northern field, part of that southern field being visible, but you get a lot more of the northern field here. Again, the applicant assesses that impact as being not significant, but it would be maintained as a moderate level of impact over the lifetime. It does introduce those new skyline elements. And the landscaping has, you can see the kind of trees coming up on the horizon there, but generally it has little effect. Returning back to the assessment, and as out in the report, there are objections from Natural England, from Dorset National Landscape Team, and from the Council's Senior Landscape Officer, Sarah, who's here today to be on hand for any technical questions as well on that matter. Overall, it's been considered that the visual landscape, the landscape and visual effects have been underestimated by the applicant. There would be significant impacts of the proposals beyond that one view that's been identified. The proposals are considered to harm the special qualities of the national landscape, notably uninterrupted panoramic views, the undeveloped rural character, a sense of remoteness and tranquility. And despite the design changes from the appeal scheme, the proposed solar farm would still be highly visible from a range of viewpoints, and the proposed mitigation would be incapable of sufficiently moderating the visual effects over the 40-year lifetime of the development. The proposals would significantly adversely affect the character of the visual of the character of the landscape and the visual quality, and from a number of viewpoints, including within the expanded Hogcliffe National Nature Reserve, and the harm is judged to be significant to which great weight is applied, and that is considered to conflict with policy ENV1 and COM11 on that kind of third strand of the policy as well. In terms of exceptional circumstances, as its major development within the national landscape, the NPPF established that plan permission should be refused for major development unless there are exceptional circumstances and where it can be demonstrated that it's in the public interest. And in considering whether there are exceptional circumstances, the NPPF tells us to consider three things. There are other things that you can consider as exceptional circumstances, but these are, the need for the development. In this case, there is a need for the development, and there are beneficial effects of the development which are captured in the report and afforded weight. The proposals would make a valuable contribution towards cutting greenhouse gas emissions, tackling climate change, responding to the nature and climate emergencies, and this carries significant weight. And in terms of the effect on the local economy, that's given more limited weight due to the kind of lower number of jobs generated. Part B here, the cost of and scope for developing outside the designated area or meeting needs in another way. As set out in the report, there's considered to be reasonable scope to develop a solar farm of similar scale outside the national landscape if a different point of connection were used. Nevertheless, officers do recognise that in the absence of a confirmed point of connection, timescales for securing that other development will be significant, and it's an unknown. So the presence of a point of connection is afforded limited positive weight in the assessment, because it would allow rapid deployment of the development. On part C here, the detrimental effects on the environment, landscape and recreational opportunities, I've set out that in the kind of previous slides, and in the report as well, you'll see that the proposed permissive route and the picnic area aren't considered to adequately compensate for the recreational amenity lost due to the kind of development around the existing Macmillan Way, the existing rights of way in the site. So overall, as set out in the report, there aren't considered to be exceptional circumstances. And on balance, the proposal is also not considered to be in the public interest, given the public interest of the national landscape. Returning to the other matters, heritage, there's no heritage harm. Residential amenity, there won't be any significant adverse effects. Highways could be satisfactorily mitigated through conditions. Biodiversity, the BNG gains exceed the 10% requirement that would support nationally protected species and through that new habitat creation. Trees would be acceptable. The tree officers recommended conditions there in terms of tree protection and maintenance. And there's also flood risk and drainage, which is considered acceptable. The lead local flood authority has recommended conditions in that regard. Looking at the planning balance here, so we've got a scheme where there's there's conflict with the local plan that's been identified, and the outcome of the recommendation turns on whether any benefits of the proposed development would outweigh the harms and conflict with the development plan. So in favour, this is an extract straight from the report, but in favour of the proposals are, the significant benefit here is the contribution towards tackling climate change, energy security, which is afforded significant weight. On ecology, biodiversity and trees, the the benefit there is considered to be moderate. There would be gains in excess of 10%. There'd be significant new tree and hedgerow planting, but notably the BNG is very good, but it is still slightly below what was at the appeal scheme, and that weighting there aligns with what the inspector said on moderate benefits. As I said on the grid connection, that's afforded limited positive weight because it's been offered to the applicant. It would allow the scheme to be rapidly delivered, and then that would bring forward the positive renewable energy benefits of the development. The economic benefits, there'd be quite a few jobs at the construction stage, but fewer over the lifetime. Overall, that's given limited positive weight in the report. There's also limited weight afforded to the farm diversification and to the temporary use of the land for the 40-year period, and that's because 40 years is a significant amount of time, being around half a lifetime a generation, and that also aligns with what the inspector concluded as well. And on the other side of the equation, you've got the significant adverse effects on landscape and visual and harm to the Dorset national landscape. Many of the impacts would persist for the lifetime of the development. There'd be harm to the special qualities of the national landscape, notably loss of panoramic views. Exceptional circumstances, as that in the report, have not been demonstrated. The NPPF tells us to apply great weight to the harm, and it's concluded that the development isn't in the public interest. So that has significant weight against the proposals. The harm to the rights of way, including the Macmillan Way, that is afforded moderate weight. And finally, the loss of agricultural productivity, taking into account that there would be some grazing and soil improvements, is afforded limited negative weight as well. So overall, on balance, the application is recommended for refusal for the reasons set out in the report, and that is for the proposed development, by reason of its appearance, scale and positioning, would have a detrimental impact on the character, landscape and visual quality of the Dorset national landscape and existing public rights of way. The impact would not be sufficiently mitigated contrary to the policies ENV 1.7, COM7 and COM11 of the local plan, and the proposal constitutes major development in the Dorset national landscape, and exceptional circumstances to justify the development have not been demonstrated. And owing to the impacts on the national landscape, granting of the proposal is not considered to be in the public interest, in conflict with Power 190 of the NPPF. The benefits of the proposal are not considered to outweigh the harm of the development, failing to comply with the local plan policy COM11 and the Dorset AONB management plan. Thank you. That concludes my officer presentation.
Thank you very much, Matthew. We now move to representation of public objection to this, and I invite Anthony Warren, who has 3 minutes, and my vice chair will give you a 30-second warning when we're coming close to that time. So your time, Anthony, will start when you start.
Okay, thank you. I've listened with great interest to the changes to the original planning permission that have been offered today. I can't help thinking about this modern term that's being used, lipstick on a pig, except the pig's still there, of course. 44 acres of photovoltaic panels in an area of outstanding natural beauty. It's just not on. Let me read to you what the government says. I think the gentleman giving the presentation said it earlier. This is government policy. Quote, government policy prioritizes protecting national landscapes, national parks, the Broads, and areas of outstanding natural beauty. Permission for the major development in these protected areas is generally refused unless in exceptional circumstances where it is proved to be in the public interest. The whole point of this piece of ground is that it's not exceptional. It's an ordinary piece of the national landscape, used to be known as an area of outstanding natural beauty. It still is, whatever you change the name of it. It is an unexceptional piece of land, which means that this can be duplicated over and over again, this little loss each time. and that will be the end of England, as Philip Larkin said. We've got to stand up against huge financial interest, I have to say this, putting things in places where they're not going to be, where they can extract the money in a rentier profit for the next 40 years, abandoning that piece of landscape to the next job they're on, ruining the lives for many people around. And it will ruin the lives. It will ruin my life as the neighbouring farmer whose fields I sent photographs in to the committee in my letter of objection. And in these fields, you'll see the wonderful range of flowers that grow up through the year in these adjacent fields to this proposed site. This will really deaden the effect for farmers around who've, with Natural England, built these fields all around this development. Admittedly, a good deal of it, thank you. Admittedly, these fields have been used on a more strict agricultural basis, the fields for proposal, but they did produce this year nearly 600 tons of maize for cattle, huge amount. This is important agricultural land. The loss is just hugely outweighing the benefits. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warren. And I invite the applicant, Stephen Bainbridge, to make his representation. Same thing again, 3 minutes, and Dave will give you a 30-second warning.
Good morning. I'm Stephen Bainbridge, the pig in lipstick from Enviromena. I live 400 metres from this AUMB, and I've been involved with this scheme since the planning appeal, which the inspector approved. The site location is driven by the very limited grid capacity and a fixed point of connection. The committee report is finely balanced, and your planning officer has taken it as far as he can. Let me help you go further. Firstly, the threefold exceptional circumstance test. The need is critical, urgent and clear, and laid bare with this year's 900 wildfires across Dorset and Wiltshire, plus our economic report, which makes clear the impact of your decision today. The environmental effects were found acceptable by the planning inspector last time, and there is still only one viewpoint out of the 29 which will see significant impacts once landscaping gets going. If you want panoramic views, you can enjoy them from the 1.5 hectare picnic area. The big question, can this scheme go outside of the AUMB? In short, no. If this scheme is refused today, the grid opportunity is lost, and contrary to what your report says, it does not simply pop up elsewhere in the county. Our scheme supports your carbon neutral Dorset targets now, which BBC News told us last week have been brought forward 5 years. Such is the urgency of the matter. If you turn to page 53 of your report, you've seen extracts on the screen, you'll see a scoring system for weighing up the harms and the benefits, where none is 0, significant is 4, and so on. Addressing the harms in that table, after a 2-week planning inquiry, the inspector only found some detrimental effect on landscape, not significant impacts. That warrants a moderate score. On rights of way, the inspector said impacts would be adequately mitigated, which is limited harm at most. Addressing the benefits, renewable energy, climate change and energy security are bunched together, but the planning inspectorate treats these as separate benefits, so please give them significant weight each. Ecology only gets moderate weight, whilst your nature recovery strategy prioritises species-rich grassland on solar sites. This scheme delivers up to 18 hectares over 40 years. That deserves significant weight if we're taking the ecological emergency seriously. Grid connection only gets limited when we've proven it's a rare asset in a heavily constrained area. That justifies at least moderate weight. The motto is use it or lose it. Economic benefits are still only given limited weight, contrary to the NPPF, which gives significant weight where justified. The Energising Dorset strategy aims for 2,000 jobs, 500 million in investment by 2035, and this scheme alone delivers 9.7 million GVA, 63 person years of employment and 5.8 million in wages. The benefits to Dorset, the parish council and the £1 million to Solarport Limited in Bridport warrant significant weight. farm diversification deserves moderate weight. So if you've got a keen eye, you'll see that the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. That's your 3 minutes. I now invite the local ward member for Egerton, Councillor Neil Isink. And Neil, you have 3 minutes as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Neil Isink, and I'm here representing Egerton Ward, and specifically on behalf of the Parish Council of Maiden Newton and Frome Church. And I'd like to point out that they have almost unanimously supported this application all through the process. I'm here to speak on their behalf because unfortunately a parish councillor couldn't be available to do so. But I just wanted to give a bit of detail about why I believe the parish so clearly supports this. Obviously, it is within the community, and often, as we all know on committees, parishes tend to object to applications rather than support. The Parish Council of Maiden Newton and Frome Church, I think, want to play their part in addressing the climate crisis. And that is the primary reason why they see the benefits in this application. The reality is that that parish council also suffers heavily from flooding in the middle of the village, and therefore there are direct benefits that the parish can see in terms of addressing climate change. The reality as well for the parish is that they live within the national landscape, and they see that it changes. It is subject to constant change, be that climate change, flooding, ash dieback. Having walked up to the site, there are things that are visible from the site. The most prominent thing are large farm buildings that have appeared within the past 15 years. And I'm pleased for that. That is part of growing the local economy. But the reality is they are changes to the landscape. Equally, ash dieback, I don't know whether that's a direct consequence of climate change, but that is extraordinarily visible as an impact to the national landscape. I would like to thank the planning officer for the time and effort he's put into putting together a very comprehensive report. The reality is that the NPPF requires great weight to be given to conserving and enhancing the national landscape. What I find sad is the fact that climate change often is missed out in that part of the discussion. The reality is that climate change will directly impact the national landscape. This application is a temporary or removable application. It has a lifetime of 40 years. And I believe that in that time, I would hope that we would be better able to identify other means to provide the energy that we need. But in the meantime, I would urge the council to hear the local voices in terms of the parish council and consider what weight they give to both the national landscape and climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Isink. Matthew, is there any points that you'd wish to address in any of those representations?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, speakers. Just a couple of points on those in turn. So, yeah, Mr. Warren, just to note to members that the exceptional circumstances assessment is set out within the committee report. Financial interests there mentioned by Mr. Warren aren't considered to be a material consideration, except for where there is that farm diversification benefit, should that be secured in a kind of alternative resolution by yourselves. And yeah, Mr. Bainbridge, speaking on behalf of the applicant, agree that the report is finely balanced there. You can see the balance struck by myself as case officer. The applicant refers to one view having significant impacts. Just to note to members, that's from the applicant's landscape and visual impact assessment. That is disagreed by Natural England, the council's landscape officer, and the Dorset National Landscape Team. The 1.5 hectare picnic area, I think maybe that figure includes the hedgerows and the tree belt. I think the accessible area is slightly less than that, but it is a significant area in itself. And the applicants set out their own weightings, which is fine, and members do your own weightings as well. But the weightings of my professional opinion are in the committee report. Councillor Eiseneck, on behalf of the parish council, you've got to commend the aspirations of the parish council there in terms of their renewable energy efforts. And just to note that has been given significant weight, positive weight, within the committee report and the officer's planning balance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do you have any technical questions that you wish to ask of Matthew Pochin? Just one moment, David. Councillor Took, you missed the beginning of this presentation. Were you asking if you could take part in this, or are you waiting for the next item?
That was exactly my question. I missed, I think, the first few seconds and then caught all of the rest and clearly read through the report and listened to the people speaking. So I was wanting to confirm whether or not, having missed the first few seconds of the presentation, that I was able to contribute to this item. So a ruling would be appreciated.
Thank you. So having taken advice on that, it was a little more than a few seconds. So I think for openness and transparency, it's better if we wait for your contribution for the next item on the agenda. Thank you. And I know it wasn't your fault at all not being able to arrive earlier.
Yeah, I'll discuss parking at County Hall later with the appropriate authorities.
Thank you very much. So members, I would just invite you to ask any questions of the officer. I would also just remind members that we heard from the applicant that this was the only site that this could happen upon. We'll all be acutely aware of the Dorset local plan at the moment and our commitment to renewables. And I'm sure members will have seen the multiple sites across Dorset for wind and solar, which have been proposed. Any questions for the officer? Belinda Borden, Lyme and Charmouth.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a difficult one, isn't it? Is there any suggestion of any flood mitigation? I'm not seeing or hearing any specific measures to reduce the impact of flooding on the parish council. I'm assuming that Councillor Isink's comment meant that because the parish council does suffer from flooding, it's acutely aware of the need to transition to clean energy rather than the site would provide flood mitigation, but perhaps you could clarify that.
In terms of flooding in the parish, I can't actually I don't know the flooding situation in detail in the local area, so I can't speak one way or the other. But just in general terms, that flooding is becoming an increasing issue across many parts of Dorset, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case here. In terms of any specific flood mitigation of the scheme, there's comments from the scheme itself has kind of limited effect on flooding. It's in flood zone 1, but there's surface water drainage considerations because of the kind of flow from the panels, and subject to a kind of minor condition there that our flood risk management team is happy on flooding of the site. But we haven't got any further comment about how the scheme addresses wider flooding issues in the local area.
Thank you. Content? Councillor Monks.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Craig Monks, Bedminster Ward. It's just a question with regards to the Parish Council submission from Maiden Newton around the Community Benefit Fund. I just wondered how that works with the considerations from the officer in terms of local benefit, and whether it's a kind of a formal consideration or a nice to have. And then following on perhaps from a decision perspective, whether it's something that can be tied into Section 106 or whether it's on a handshake. I just want to understand that a bit more, if possible.
Sorry, I'm pressing the wrong button there. Got a blue light. Yeah, so the applicant suggested a £20,000 local benefit fund to the parish council. That is, as set out in the report, not considered to be a material consideration. It's a financial contribution to the parish council, and it's not considered to make the development acceptable in planning terms. It's not something we consider could be secured via a Section 106. So it's something that the applicant will be doing directly with the parish council, and it's not, doesn't kind of change the balance one way or the other in the officer's report.
Thank you. Any other members with any technical questions? We can move into debate at this point, or I'm happy to take a proposal. Councillor Flower.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Flower, Verwood Ward. Thank you to the officer for a very comprehensive presentation of his report, and bearing in mind that we've also declared a nature emergency in this council, and anything we do to our natural environment we need to do with care and consideration. And whilst I appreciate that solar energy has an impact and a benefit overall to renewables in this country, I'm going to support the officer recommendation to refuse on the basis of its impact and the points he's made very eloquently, and it's set out in 2.1 of his reports. So I will support the officer recommendation to refuse. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Flower. Councillor Rideout.
Thank you, Chairman. Belinda Rideout, Gillingham Ward. I'd be happy to support the recommendation to refuse in line with the case officer's recommendations, for the reason being the impact on this very sensitive landscape. And although it says it's temporary, it's 40 years. And the legacy of the trees and the planting is going to be there forever, and it's going to change that landscape. And I don't find that acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bell.
Councillor Matt Bell, Radipole Ward. The officer, firstly, thank you for the presentation. And there was mention earlier that members may perceive a different weighting to that laid out by the officer. On this occasion, I would fall into the category of providing a different thought on the weighting. We've heard about the impact on this precious landscape. The impacts of climate change that lie ahead of us are significant. We've heard a reference to wildfires, we've heard reference to flooding. Current forecasts are predicting more intense rainfall, which will impact, or likely to impact, residents of areas such as Maiden Newton. And we heard in Councillor Isenk's discussion point earlier that the local council are supporting this. The local parish council are in support of the people that live in this very landscape, and they want to play their part. We've also heard reference to public interest. I cannot think of anything more in the public interest than mitigating climate change and playing our part as a county to achieve net zero. For that reason, I'm currently minded to seek another route through this, and I'm satisfied that with the 41.71% increase in habitat units, 20.95% increase in hedgerow units, as laid out in the report. We've got the Ramblers Association have not presented objections. I believe, I haven't got it directly in front of me now, but I believe they were positive about the rest and picnic area, providing for people exploring this landscape, enjoying this landscape, and enjoying views from that picnic area. 5,142 homes worth of power is not insignificant. That is a huge number, and will be a big leap forward for this county's aims to mitigate climate change as we move forward. The fact it is a 40-year application, in the grand scheme of things, means that should new technology come online over those decades, this can be looked at again at that point. Maybe we can return it to its natural format at that time, with the addition of hedgerows, habitat, and the other benefits that have been laid out already. Thank you for the landscape imagery. That was very, very useful. My personal view is that I'm satisfied that a balance has been reached between the benefits of this on both a local and national scale and international scale. Climate change doesn't care about borders. And that the mitigation with regard to views I view as satisfactory. So for that reason, I'm currently minded to seek a way where we can support this installation of solar panels in this precious landscape. But note that part of the reason for that would be to protect that very landscape. Yesterday on the BBC, there was reported representations from, I believe it's called the Climate Change Committee, an independent panel of advisors that advise the government, telling the UK government to prepare for 2 degrees of warming by 2050. That is well within the timescale of this development, and this development can contribute positively to mitigating against those expert opinions of very significant temperature rise. 2 degrees doesn't sound a lot. That will change landscapes such as Dorset. It will. And we're talking about 2 fields that can make a big impact. And for that reason, I believe this development to very much be in the public interest. And whether it fits the legalities of it or not, in my own head, I'm satisfied the exceptional circumstances lie before us and have been laid bare by reports. 2 degrees of warming by 2050 will impact that environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bell. To satisfy your request, I just must explain the process that we're in at the moment. So as I understand it from Councillor Flower, we have a proposal to accept the officer recommendation, and from Councillor Rideout, we have a second for that. So we have a substantive motion. We can test that at a vote, and should that fail, then you would be able to make an alternate proposal. To just bear in mind, when the member says, well, legalities or not, well, we are quasi-judicial, we are bound by planning law. The COM 11 for renewable energy development gives material planning considerations that this application doesn't satisfy. So that's the actual technicality. I think it is encouraging that the people of the parish impacted by this have a responsibility and awareness for climate change, and you'll know that this committee has approved solar sites previously. So I think it's more to do with this specific site rather than stepping away from renewable energy, which I'm sure all sides of the chamber are committed to. So if anybody would like to make some more contributions before we go to a vote, Belinda, very happy to take that now.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm very influenced, I think, by the fact that the parish council and ward member are in support of this. I was previously thinking more about the impact on the landscape and the fact that it is so special because it's so open from so many places, and whether or not that the potential for biodiversity sort of linking up the areas that the planning officer showed as being of exceptional biodiversity quality, or the special sites, whether or not there's a potential for linking those up and therefore contributing to nature recovery. But I can't. I do think it's really important and becoming more and more urgent that we do need to transition to clean energy as fast as we can. And as has been said, we do normally listen to local objections. And in this case, the local people are not objecting. And I think that's quite powerful. Are there any further screening mitigations that could be conditioned that would reduce the landscape loss, or has everything been explored already? Okay, sorry, that's probably a technical question, but
happy to take that as a question to the officer at the moment if he's content to answer.
As I understand it, we've got the application before us today. There's planning conditions which I suppose you can look at. I'd say we have worked hard with the applicant through pre-app to look at the mitigation that's possible, the tree belts that have come in as new. The hedgerows, I think fair to say we've worked together on that to improve the scheme. And as you see from the visuals, we and the landscape officer and the national landscape team think there's little effect that the landscaping does on impacts from the other side of the valley. So it's hard to see how further tree planting would make a significant difference to it.
Councillor Portland. Is there any? Yeah, Craig Monks.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Craig Monks, Bedminster Ward. This is a really difficult debate for me because I think ordinarily we'd be very much on a similar page to Councillor Flowers with regards to obviously the report as put forward, but there is definitely the interest for me in terms of the support from the local, not all local residents, and I thank the member of the public who's come along to speak today against as well, but I am very aware that when the parish council is supportive and my neighbour ward council is also supportive, it does really make this a difficult decision to make, because one of my personal bugbears with similar applications is the local benefit, because often, as we all know, it's the renewable energy created is based on national grid and everything else, so it's not really always benefiting the immediate local town or village. But in this case, with their support, it's a quandary for me. So I'll be interested to see what further debate comes from this. But I'm genuinely stuck. Don't know how useful that is to you, Chair, but there you go.
Thank you. Councillor Bolwell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I do agree this is a difficult one. We've got climate change versus national landscapes, basically, in summary. But I am taken by the fact the exception has not been proven. The COM11, ENV1, objections to national landscapes and Dorset Council are all things that we have to give weight to in our own heads. Matthew's done an excellent job, I think, presenting the pros and cons on this one. And like Councillor Monks, I'm not sure which way I'm going to vote at the moment, so I hope the further debate may aid me in that cause. Thank you.
Councillor Rideout.
Thank you, Chairman. Belinda Rideout, Gillingham Ward. This is a difficult one. And local support doesn't mean that the application is correct and right to be in the location where it is. And I think it would be a huge shame if this went through today. Thank you.
So this is a tricky one because we have a commitment to renewables. We have a commitment to wind and solar, and certainly within the local plan, we're considering air source heat pumps, ground source heat pumps, all of that. So this is a journey that we are on. We're committed to decarbonation of the grid by 2030, and we have our own targets within Dorset Council. As I understand it from the officer report, that exceptional circumstances, which is the same when we may have considered rural exception sites and all sorts of things, they are a defined criteria, very special circumstances as well for development on the green belt when that meant something. And the officer is clear that exceptional circumstances are not shown in this instance. And I think for me, having been brought up in open landscape, I've had to really detach my visceral feeling about what I know to be true in the world and the climate, because that, in this instance, on this site, is not us walking away from renewables. It's we are using the framework that we work within to make a robust legal decision. And I would remind members that if we were minded to refuse, and that's in the prerogative of the committee, I will need material planning considerations as to why we go against the officer recommendation. Councillor Flower.
Clarify that point, Chairman. You've got refusal on the table. I think you mean grant, don't you?
Quite right. Quite right. So, of course, so Councillor Bolwell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think your summation there has actually helped me. I do believe now that I've made my mind up that I will go along with Councillor Spencer Flower's proposal.
Councillor Crabb.
Councillor Richard Crabb, Sherborne Ward. Yes, it is a bit of a quandary for me, definitely. But what I'd like to understand a little bit more is about what other opportunities we have in the local plan for these kinds of PV sites that against the capacity of the grid. So, I mean, this could well be an opportunity that we ought to be taking, or it could be that the capacity of the grid is so constrained that that is not the case. So I'm trying to understand the balance here, if that makes sense. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Crabb. I'm not sure, are you able to speak to that, Matthew?
Yeah, I can. I'll try and speak to that. So, the current local plan, there aren't any allocations in that for renewable energy of any type, and the new emerging local plan got a consultation out at the moment. It does identify opportunity areas across wide parts of Dorset, as out in the report, for different types of renewable energy, which has been informed by landscape assessment. But because the emerging local plan is at such a very early stage, we're not giving it. I haven't given it I've given it very limited weight in the report. In terms of the constraints on the grid, since the appeal and the public inquiry, the constraints on the grid have got worse. So at the time of the inquiry, Maiden Newton was showing as one of the few with some unconstrained capacity. Now all of the kind of similar level substations are showing with, similar constraints as Maiden Newton, the same constraints as Maiden Newton. But importantly, as the applicants point out, they've got a offer from the DNO, so that's an offer they've got on the table. Would they need, if someone's going to start again looking for a site, there's likely to be delays. I think that's probably as much as I can say on that. Thank you.
Councillor Crabb? Yeah, I mean, I would suggest that any members of the public and the member for Egerton and the committee, if you're not aware and haven't seen the opportunity sites for renewables across Dorset, have a look at Dorset Explorer and you can apply the layer for that and you'll see the extensive sites that are being considered for renewables at the moment. There are many. Okay, so we have a proposal from Councillor Flower, which is to accept the recommendation of the officer to refuse. and that has been seconded by Councillor Rideout. So if we test this and it should fail, then we will move on and see if there is a further motion. So in the usual way, with a simple show of hands, those in favour to refuse, please show. Okay, and those minded to grant? Thank you very much.
It's those against the resolution, those minded to grant.
Yes, yes. So those three were against the resolution. So that's P full 2025-00485, land at Cruxton Farm, Cruxton Lane, Cruxton, is to refuse. Thank you. What I'll do is if we adjourn for 5 minutes, just in case anybody needs a comfort break, and then we will move on to Bladeley Hill application. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon and welcome back to this strategic and technical planning. We have one item left to resolve. This is application P4 2024-03046, Bladley Hill Court Farm, Buckler Newton, Dorset. And this will be presented by Tom Uglow, supported by Felicity Hart. So, Tom, you know the drill, but you won't run out of time.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, members. My name's Tom Uglow, and I'm going to be taking you through the Bladley Hill planning application. Now, just before I get into the presentation itself, I'm just going to draw your attention to the update report that you should have received, which updates conditions 3, 4, and 5. So, as I go through this, I'm going to do a brief introduction to the application, then go through the location and the proposal, go through the key planning considerations before moving on to my conclusion. So the application itself is for an already constructed lagoon for the continued importation and storage of septic tank waste, which is essentially sewage, into the lagoon and the underground tanks on the site. This waste is imported from septic tanks in the local area, and this waste is known as sewage sludge. This sewage sludge is then later injected into the fields as a form of fertilizer in accordance with the Sludge Use in Agriculture Regulations 1989. Now, just like to make it clear that our role here is to determine whether this waste can be imported to and stored on the site in the red line. The use of this waste as a fertilizer comes under the Environment Agency's consenting regimes.
Tom, sorry to interrupt you there. Are you able to share your presentation on the screen? No. No.
Is that not?
That's much better. You're doing very well, but from the pre-meet, I felt we were lacking some visuals, although your descriptions are outstanding.
So the site is accessed via a bridleway, which is along one of the farm tracks. This is known as S1044. This is reached by going along a sea road called Gales Hill. And then this goes obviously down the S1044 bridleway and enters to the site proper, which is located on Bladley Hill. Now, I'm just going to give you through a quick description of the site itself. The site is bordered by a hedge line just to the north along here. And a gate and stock fence is located on the bottom of the site here on the south. The bridleway is located approximately 40 metres away from the site proper, just along this part of the pathway here. Now, I'd just like to mention, during the inputting of the liner, you may be able to see here that there is a gap in the hedge, and during the inputting of the liner, this was damaged. However, this hedge has now since been replanted. And a suggested condition has been put forward, which requires the maintenance of that hedgerow. I'll just put you forward onto the map here, and there's the lagoon is located here on the east of the site, and you may see there that there is a marker saying covered. At the moment, it is not covered. However, this is also a part of a suggested condition in the application. At the time of the application, you'll have seen a number of above-ground tanks on the site and also a aggregate stockpile. However, these have now been removed from the red line of the site. So this is a bit of a closer look at the site itself. These are the two underground tanks, and in the background you'll see that stock fence and the lagoon itself. This is it looking up towards the entrance of the site proper, and you can see there's a gap in the hedge which the vehicles come through. And here's a closer look at the view of the lagoon. So this here is a picture of the view of the lagoon from across the valley itself. this is taken from a bridleway to the east of the site. And if you look at your reports in picture 3, you can see the difference. This was taken approximately a week and a bit ago on a Thursday, so relatively good weather, and you can see that there's not that you can't see any of the tanks or anything else that was previously on the site. Okay, so going more in depth into the proposal itself. So the actual proposal is for the retention of this constructed lagoon and for the continued location of the underground tanks on the site. These store sewage sludge, which is collected from nearby septic tanks, and this waste is collected by six-wheel tankers and delivered to the site via Gales Hill, Sea Road, and along the bridleway, which is owned by Mr. Perrott. Now, there's an annual average of approximately 2 deliveries a day. However, this varies over the course of the year. Once this waste has been brought onto the site, the purpose of this waste is for later be used as fertilizer within the farm. So why do they need a lagoon to store this waste? So the Nitrate Pollution Prevention Regulations 2015 stipulate that there is a closed period for spreading any organic manure with highly readily available nitrogen. Now, the exact dates vary depending on crops being grown and the soil type, but they roughly cover a period from October to the start of February. And this period is known as the MVZ closed period, MVZ meaning nitrate vulnerable zone. As such, to enable the business to continue to collect septic tank waste over this period, the lagoon is required to store it. Now, I just mentioned that although there is a water recycling centre in the village of Buckland Newton, this waste can only be disposed of normally at specific water treatment works, and the closest ones to this site are Yeovil and Poole. And these sites, when this site is unable to take any more waste, these sites are actually used. Now, I think it's important to note that if this application was to be refused, it would not actually stop the injection of sewage sludge onto this land. It would just restrict the applicant the times that it could actually bring it onto its land to inject it itself to times essentially outside the MVZ closed period. It would also prevent them from using the lagoon as a storage system. Now, I'll just go into the constraints which have informed our key planning considerations. So the Cerne and Sidelings Down SAC and Giants Hill SSSI is located here. The Holcombe Wood Ancient Woodland is located here to the south of the site. And the Bridleways S1044 is located here, which is along the access route. S1045 located here, which forms part of a T-junction to the access route. And S1042, which the site is visible from the east. This entire site is within the Dorset National Landscape. So the key planning considerations are as follows. The air quality impact upon the protected European sites, the visual impact upon the Dorset National Landscape, and the impact upon the public right-of-way. So to begin going into the air quality impact upon the protected European sites. Now, Natural England concluded there would be an unacceptable air quality impact upon the 2 European protected sites, Cerne and Sidelings Down SAC and Giants Hill SSSI, located here approximately 850 metres away from the site. Now, these 2 European protected sites are already in exceedance of the acceptable emissions. However, the applicant has agreed to mitigate this by installing an impermeable layer, an impermeable cover across the top of the lagoon, which is suggested as a condition under Condition 2. This approach has been deemed acceptable in Natural England. I'll secondly go on to the visual impact upon the Dorset National Landscape. So it's located within the Dorset National Landscape, but it's also visible from 2 public rights-of-way, namely that one to the north that we discussed, which was on the access track, behind this hedge here in the background, and this one, which the photographs are taken from, to the east. Now, at the time of the application, as I mentioned earlier on, the lagoon liner was visible from that northern public right-of-way behind that hedge. and storage tanks, material stockpiles, and various types of equipment were visible from the eastern public right-of-way. Since then, these tanks and materials have been removed from the site, and a hedgerow has been replanted in the north. I've also included a suggested condition for a hedgerow on the south side of the site, which would obscure the operations of the site. As such, this significantly decreased the visual impacts of the site. Now, with the additional planting of a hedge, this not only has the effect of just conserving, but it also has the effects of adding an element of enhancement to the national landscape. Dorset National Landscape Team's response made some question about as to whether a commercial waste operation would be within the character of the national landscape. We've concluded that although this development would not be completely in character, it supports farmland, which is a key feature of the national landscape, and as long as this site remains a relatively small-scale waste operation, it would not negatively affect the national landscape. Now moving on to the impact upon the public right-of-way. So the lagoon site is located here, and the Gales Hill Sea Road is located here. You can see that it's actually, the Sea Road access is off a lay-by here. This red line here is the farm track / bridleway, which is also owned by the applicant. Now, the supporting text of Policy 12 of the Waste Plan states that whilst waste facilities can impact upon public rights-of-way, in cases such as this, it is important to safeguard and improve these assets to enable these paths to continue to be enjoyed. Now, the annual average of 2 imports to the lagoon I mentioned earlier on. However, these numbers, as we understand, will probably flex over the course of the year. So as such, I've suggested a condition of maximum 5 imports per day. We've also had a suggested condition, which is shown in this map, which shows a number of passing places which have been put forward, and the maintenance of these is also conditioned. We believe this effectively mitigates the impact upon the public right-of-way. So, in conclusion, following the removal of the above-ground tanks from the site, and with the implementation of the proposed planting, we believe the principle of development is acceptable, and the development now adequately mitigates the main planning impacts, those being the air quality impact, the site's impact upon the Dorset national landscape, and the impact upon the public right-of-way. As such, we recommend to grant this planning permission subject to the conditions located in the report and those that have been updated in the update report.
Thank you very much, Tom. We now have 2 public speakers, Helen Simpson and John Simpson. Do you have a preference in which order you speak? Okay, so we're going to hear from Helen Simpson first. Helen, you have 3 minutes, and like the other speakers in the previous applications, you'll be given fair warning at 2 minutes 30.
Thank you. The lagoon discussed is situated at the top of Bladley Hill. It has 3 valleys next to it. The valley to the north is where the River Liddon is the source of the River Liddon. And then there are 2 much smaller valleys to the south. There's a bridleway that leads up this hill from Buckland Newton. And when you reach the top where the land opens out, you look back and you're just struck. You're really hit by this breathtaking view across the valley, especially in the evening. And then you get a sudden breath of wind and will hit you, and you'll be hit with something different. It's the smell of human sewage. And once smelt, you can't really get away from it. And this isn't recent. This began many years before the lagoon was built, because up here, just as we were told, 40 metres from the bridleway is where the applicant has been keeping sewage in old containers for a long time. When you're up there, very often you see tankers arrive emptying their contents into these, or now it's the lagoon. And there's always, if you look around, somewhere in the close vicinity, there is an injector which injects the sewage into the soil. And it seems to be on a kind of hose, so it can only be a certain distance from the lagoon or from the tanks. And it always seems to me that it's the same fields adjacent to the path and a little bit further, some green fields, where the sewage is injected into the ground. And it's only this year after the application that there's been any crops growing in those fields. It's generally, they're ploughed now and then just nettles and docks grow up. The length of this small valley that I talked about, which is where he keeps the lagoon, where the lagoon is now, that little valley right next to the, near the path, can be seen from Hilling Lane. And in 2021, walkers started noticing ever-growing piles of soil emerging from in this valley. It's as if the soil had been thrown up by some giant underground badger, and each day more of that little valley was filling up. And what was happening was that convoys of 30-ton lorries were driving along the bridleway to empty construction waste into this valley. To me, this is shocking that this could be allowed to happen when these little tiny valleys with their slopes that can't be farmed, where the biodiversity thrives, that should be protected. And it was into this that the lagoon was excavated. First of all, it was filled with sewage, this huge lagoon. The EA insisted it was emptied because it wasn't lined. It was then lined in 2024, and the EA seems to approve of it.
Helen, thank you very much. That's 3 minutes. Maybe John can help you with anything you didn't have time to say. So John, again, you have three minutes. You were given the heads up at 2 minutes 30, and your time starts when you start.
Yeah, there's all sorts of issues here, but they all stem from the question, why should Buckland Newton be the dumping ground for all sorts of waste? And in some ways, it's fortunate that people are prepared to do this unpleasant task of emptying septic tanks. Someone needs to do it. It's essential work. But does a more considered approach be needed? We hear of the talk of a cover, impermeable cover. Sounds quite difficult to me. I mean, I used to work on a farm, and this was years ago, before there were the regulations on slurry lagoons, and the amount of water. I mean, the cover needs to be impermeable. It's hard to know how this cover is going to work. We get an incredible wind up at Buckland Newton, and it's a high point. Yeah, it's very difficult to know. The average rainfall is about 35 inches. And if that rainfall gets into the lagoon, then the level raises up, and it's not sewage sludge. You've got so much water in there, and you can't just pump it out, because then it would run down the valley into who knows where it would go. So there is all sorts of dangers. Another factor would be within this window where the sludge can be spread, it's variable. If you get continuous wet rain and the land is too wet to empty the lagoon in that period, it's not going to be able to be emptied, and the crop, will the crop be planted in the future? I don't know. This is a matter which Helen brought up, that there hasn't actually been very many crops. There's been a crop this year, which I should imagine grew fantastically well with all that fertilizer from many years previously. I mean, maize does need a lot of fertilizer, and that's fantastic that maize crops are grown, and of course it's all sort of organic. But we don't know what's coming out of septic tanks. Who knows what could have got in there, really? So that's about my question. I'd like a bit more clarification on the cover, really, if that's possible.
Okay, John, thank you very much. And then we have the agent for the applicant, Nick Baker, please. John, if you're able to turn off your microphone.
Good afternoon, committee. This application is for the retention of a lagoon for storage of organic manure to utilise as fertiliser at Nappencourt Farms. The application is not to determine the use of sewage sludge as fertiliser, which will continue at this location. This has been happening for nearly 40 years now and will continue to happen completely legally, complying with all the regulations, no matter the result of this application. The requirement for the lagoon comes about because of the recently implemented nitrogen close period, where fertiliser cannot be added direct to the ground in the winter months. It will be stored for use in the spring. Restricting vehicle movements to and from the storage lagoon will limit the capacity to within the current regulations the Environment Agency set. Going on to, I've got to change what I was going to say because a lot of it's been said. I think going on to the cover we propose will be slightly raised on one side at an angle. There'll be no way the rainwater can get into the lagoon, so it won't fill up. The lagoon will literally have sewage sludge brought in from other locations. The sewage sludge is used as fertiliser. It's also, so basically other fertiliser needs to be brought into the site as it's not enough on its own for all of the fields and also all of the nutrients that are required. The pig's slurry and cow slurry is often brought into the site, and these have to be supplemented with chemical fertilisers to get various other nutrients. All of the sewage sludge which is brought in from a fairly local radius from the site by tanker. Otherwise, it would have to go down to Poole Treatment Works or to Yeovil Treatment Works. There is documented facts that both Poole and Yeovil during times of storm surge and overcapacity do discharge into the watercourses, including Poole Harbour and the River Yeo. One of the main reasons the nitrate close zone was brought in was to protect Poole Harbour from excessive nitrates. So by taking this material out of the Poole Treatment Works, stops it from being accidentally, or maybe not accidentally, discharged into the nitrate sensitive area. So basically we're trying to, by using this fertiliser direct from source, direct to the farm, it's reducing the carbon footprint and vehicle movements, etc., of every owner of a septic tank in rural Dorset. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Officer, do you have any points you wish to address that have been mentioned?
I don't think I do, no. I don't think so.
I wonder, there seems to be a concern with regards to air quality, and there's been questions around the cover. I wonder if you could speak to the changes in this amended application to previously with the volumes that will be held in the lagoon. And also, for my benefit, if we're looking at smells, these are often gas driven. I'm not sure how that will be mitigated by a cover. It's not larger air particulates, and I'm just mindful of how that's managed within landfill sites, which also suffer from odours. And it seems to be that the use of the cover is to mitigate water going in and the smells. So I'd just like some clarity on that, please.
So the reason for the cover is actually for air quality. So it's the air quality impact upon the protected sites. So it's to prevent particulates from reaching those protected sites. The point you make about the smells, I think the issue, I don't believe the cover will completely prevent any level of smell. However, I have spoken to our environmental health officers and colleagues in the environmental health team. They believe that the site won't have a major basically odour effect as people pass the site, because they are transient users, essentially. They'll only be able to smell it in near close proximity to the site, really. Unless it's been injected. However, that is part and parcel of that, and that's not really the subject of this application. I'd just like to mention, this is purely anecdotal, but I visited the site across periods, so in the summer, winter, pretty much every season because of the length of time that this site has been in, and varying levels of fill on the of the lagoon. And I personally have not really smelt anything that would be unsurprising in that environment. I would also mention that the only time I did really smell anything was when they were actively injecting. So there was I can understand the concern about that. However, that's not something that we can particularly control through this part of the application.
So if you could speak to the level of the fill of the lagoon and how that's monitored.
Yes, so the lagoon has a maximum fill of 1,250 by their waste exemption, which is controlled by the Environment Agency. But we also have a planning condition which also requires that. We've requested as part of that planning application a method of measurement, essentially, that will be submitted to us. And then once we've received that, we'll decide whether that's an acceptable method of measurement, essentially.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions of the officer? David Took.
David Took, Cranbourne and Old Holt Ward. I just want to follow up on Chairman's question about the effect of the cover. Because you've got this human waste, which is sort of fermenting away and giving off gases. And those gases are what roll down to the protected area that you mentioned in your presentation. How does a cover, if you cover it so it's airtight, then it'll pop. So clearly those gases have got to escape or be vented somehow. So the cover isn't actually preventing their escape. So what other than as an umbrella, how does it help? I just don't understand that.
Well, I can't speak exactly. I'm not an expert in particular covers. However, when we do receive the cover from itself, we would potentially be taking this to Natural England, who are the main requirers of the cover, because and there is a specific mention that I think coming in very shortly, there is going to be a requirement on every slurry and sludge lagoon of this type of cover. I couldn't tell you exactly how that prevents it or the specifics of how it does prevent that, but this is almost like this is pretty much a standard condition that is put forward on slurry and sludge lagoons across the period.
Okay, so by some mysterious process, the gases aren't escaping. I don't believe it. I don't understand how Natural England can come to that assumption. My other question is, why have this waste dealt with in this place? Why is it taken to an established public sewage treatment facility? We should be far better equipped to deal with it. And if that means going to Poole, that's fine. If that means going to Yeovil, that's fine. Why does it have to be this sort of small scale? I'm not wishing to disparage anybody, but not a professional sewage treatment facility, such as is operated by public companies. So what's the necessity for it to be treated locally?
I'd just like to mention that the proposal that they are putting forward is they are not proposing to treat the sewage in any way. That would be out of their permits that the Environment Agency have given them, and any form of treatment probably would go through via those locations. This offers an opportunity to deal with the waste close to the source, which is in line with the proximity principle that we deal with in the National Planning Policy for Waste. So there is this reason that we should deal with waste as close to its source or origin as possible. And this is one method of doing that. It's not the only method, but it is one method of doing it.
Thank you. I guess it keeps it out of the rivers. I guess it keeps it out of the rivers. Okay, thank you for that. I'm not convinced by Natural England's argument, but I'll give up for now.
Thank you. Councillor Flower.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Councillor Flower, Verwood Ward. I mean, it's not a topic that I'm very familiar with, so I managed to get a copy of the guidance from DEFRA. And one of the things I've picked up in here, and I pick up a comment that was made just now, untreated sludge. You must never not spread untreated sludge on land. So how do we deal with that? I mean, who polices the sludge and where does it go beyond it?
Sorry, so I just made to make this very clear. This is the injection of sludge, which will be done at that fertilising stage. But that is also policed by the Environment Agency. And that whole aspect is completely within the Environment Agency's regime.
Yes, Councillor Flower.
Back, can I ask a question? We're really curious about the volume of sludge coming in and the amount of sludge being required to be used on the adjacent land of the farm. It does seem to me that there's a huge volume coming in one direction, and are we actually saying that all of that volume is used on the land of the farm?
Yes, we are essentially. They stating, and this is the reason for this application, is because they believe that they are using all of that waste on the farm.
Sorry. This application, I should just point out, is for the retention of the sludge lagoon, which is about the storage, which, as Tom mentioned in his presentation, is primarily needed to keep it there over a portion of the year from about November to February, and then it would be used. And as far as I understand it, there is other sludge that comes in that goes straight onto the land at other times of the year. So when you ask the question about the total amount, we don't have an answer to that because that's not part of the planning application. As the applicant explained, it's something that they've been doing as an agricultural practice for many years. But this application is about the retention of the sludge lagoon specifically for that proposal. So they are interesting questions, but they're sort of a side issue to the actual application in front of us.
Thank you for that. I think I share some of your concerns, Councillor Flower. This must be the most fertilised piece of land in Dorset. Whether it will become the new hanging gardens of mid-Dorset, I'm not sure. It does seem to me to be more about a business collecting waste and having a convenient bit of land to put it in rather than intensive farming. But that's not this application, but I hear what you say. Any other members with any other questions who wish to move into debate? Yeah, Councillor Belinda.
Gillingham Ward. Tom, I just wanted to query, a site like this, because I'm looking at the photograph of it now with the liner, should it not be fenced or will it be fenced?
So there is actually fencing, as you can see in front of you, and then there's fencing that actually runs down to the right-hand side there as well, which it goes down the hill. I don't know how easy it is to see on that picture that you have. I'm just looking over your shoulder almost, but there is actually fencing that goes down, if you see on the right-hand side, and goes down into the hill. On the left-hand side, there is a hedge that has been planted, but it is growing up. And in addition to that, in the future, there will be a liner, a cover that will go over the top of it. So it does solve that.
Councillor Tuck.
Just one final question. I'm just wondering why this is a retrospective application. Was one not put in good time when it was first constructed? Or was it constructed without permission?
Yeah, it was constructed without permission.
So, is there any debate that members wish to have, or Councillor Monks, Bedminster?
Sorry, it's a technical question, Chair. Do you mind? Councillor Tuck asked the question that was in my mind, and I thank the officer for the answer, but I fear there might be a follow-on. I don't know if it's a technical question, but if the original structure was built without permission, how we come to retrospective, is that through enforcement, or is that kind of an honest mistake and we better come back?
Yeah, so there was actually a complaint initially, and then our enforcement colleagues did visit the site, and then at that point, the applicant put in an application for the development. Sorry, I should be...
Yeah, sorry, if I can't see your face, I can't hear you either, and neither can other people. If you could just repeat that, that would be great.
So apologies for that. So the site was complained about. Our enforcement colleagues then went to the site, and subsequently the applicant put in an application for the site.
Councillor Roper, Portland.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Pete Roper from Portland Ward. I just got a question on the bridleway, because obviously there will be an increase in traffic on that bridleway, and of course it will, which would also be shared with walkers and horse riders as well. From what I've seen, it might be out of date from things like a street map or Google Earth. It looks not in tip-top condition. I'm just wondering, who is responsible for the maintenance of that bridleway going forward?
So the actual bridleway itself, Dorset Council is responsible for the maintenance of the bridleway itself. However, we have a condition in here for all the passing places that are adjacent to it where they park up, as walkers and other users are utilising that bridleway. That the maintenance of that is a requirement of the applicant by that condition.
Yeah, I think I understand that. Yeah, but we're just talking about the passing places there, aren't we? I'm talking about the actual, the continuation of the track from the road all the way up to the lagoon. Are you saying that sort of Dorset Council would be sort of responsible, sort of filling in any sort of large potholes or sort of or resurfacing if the increase in HGVs does cut up that track?
Yeah, essentially, because as an adopted bridleway, we are responsible for making sure that that bridleway is kept up to the level that users can use it, essentially.
Thank you. Does anybody feel ready at this point to make a proposal? Councillor Rideout. I wouldn't say Borden.
Belinda Rideout, Gillingham Ward. I don't like retrospective applications, I must admit, but with the conditions within this report, it regularises the operation that's been going on for decades, and it will have a cover. So I think we should be supporting it, and I'd be happy to approve it.
And Councillor Bell?
I'm very happy to second that as well for the same reasons.
There are benefits to regularisation, as you say, and the fact whether an application is retrospective or not is not a consideration for us at this time. But I hear what you say. So we have a proposal to grant as per the application with the identified conditions, and we have a proposal that seconds that. Does anybody wish any further time for debate? No? Then we'll test that in the usual way by a simple show of hands. So those in favour to grant this application as per the officer recommendation, please show. Got that? Just 3. Yeah. And those against? 1. And those abstaining? Members, thank you very much. Application P-Full 2024-03046 is granted, That's Bladley Hill, Court Farm, Buckler Newton, Dorset. There are no urgent items. There's no exempt business, and we have managed to get to this point without having to have an extension. So thank you to officers for attending today, members. I'm sorry that the member for Cranbourne and Alderholt had issues parking. That will be followed up. And members of the public and applicant, thank you very much for your attendance today. Thank you to Democratic Services and our legal support and my Vice Chair. Thank you very much. Meeting is now closed at 12:45.